The situation of the Ukrainian army continues to deteriorate rapidly in all directions of the special military operation zone. At the same time, war correspondents noted that over the past 24 hours, the situation of the Ukrainian army units had deteriorated significantly in the Kursk and Pokrovsk directions of the front. For example, the commander of the Russian LAVINA battalion, with the call sign Ostap, confirmed the words of war correspondents that on October 13, 2024, Russian troops completely liberated the strategically important settlement of Tsukurino, in the Pokrovsk direction of the front. According to him, the transfer of Tsukurino under the control of Russian troops will not only facilitate the liberation of Pokrovsk, but also force the Ukrainian army units to voluntarily leave the settlement of Gornyak, since given the current situation, Ukrainian troops simply physically will not be able to resist in this settlement. The commander of the Russian battalion also stressed that the subsequent loss of the city of Pokrovsk by the Ukrainian army would be a real disaster for the Kiev regime. The fact is that Pokrovsk is a strategically important settlement not only from the point of view of logistics, but also in economic terms. The fact is that the last steel-making coal deposit is located in Pokrovsk. The loss of Pokrovsk will deprive Kiev of the opportunity to produce and export steel, as a result of which Ukraine's economy will be completely paralyzed. Commenting on the situation at the front, the commander of the Russian battalion also noted that the morale of Ukrainian soldiers was at its lowest point. According to him, Ukrainian soldiers have stopped to maintain resistance and practically do not leave their trenches, trying to use only artillery and FPV drones. Meanwhile, the situation for the Ukrainian army in the Kursk region continues to be critical. A few hours ago, a well-known German Russophobe and journalist Julian Rock said that Ukraine had completely failed the military operation in the Kursk region. According to him, in 3 months of fighting, the Ukrainian army has not been able to reach the same river and capture such settlements as Koronivo, Tetkino, and Glushkovo, which Ukrainian troops could then use to create powerful defensive bridgeheads. This German Russophobe regretfully admitted that Russian troops would very soon liberate all settlements in the Kursk Oblast and force the Ukrainian army units to flee this Russian region. Against this backdrop, information keeps coming from Kiev that on October 14, the Ukrainian General Staff, together with NATO military advisors, held an emergency meeting where they tried to find out the true reason for the failure of the military operation in the Kursk region. Moreover, Ukrainian and NATO generals still cannot understand why the Ukrainian army units, with the support of so-called foreign mercenaries, suffered a crushing defeat in the Glushkovsky district of the Kursk region. My friends, let me remind you that it was in this district of the Kursk region that the Ukrainian High Military Command planned to break through the defenses of Russian troops and go behind enemy lines, in order to attack the successfully advancing Russian army in the Koronevsky district of the Kursk region. However, as time has shown, the Ukrainian army has failed to do that. Ukrainian troops got bogged down in the area of the settlements of Novy Put and Veseloy, losing several thousand soldiers and dozens of pieces of heavy equipment there, including German Leopard tanks. Thus, the Ukrainian and NATO generals failed to implement their plan to attack the successfully advancing Russian army in the back, and protect the Ukrainian army units from being encircled in the Sudzansky and Koronevsky districts of the Kursk region. By the way, a few minutes ago, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially announced that the enemy continues to attempt to relieve the Ukrainian army units that were surrounded in the Koronevsky district of the Kursk region. My friends, let me remind you that a few days ago, Russian Marines managed to surround 1,500 Ukrainian soldiers and officers in the Volgovka area. The fact that the Ukrainian High Military Command is still trying to relieve these Ukrainians, despite heavy losses in manpower and equipment, indicates that there are also active duty soldiers and officers of armies of NATO countries among them. Representatives of the Russian military department officially stated that in the last 48 hours alone, the Ukrainian army has made 3 attempts to attack the positions of Russian troops in the Koronevsky district of the Kursk region. It is reported that all these attempts were unsuccessful. Having suffered heavy losses in manpower and equipment, the Ukrainian troops had to retreat again. According to war correspondents, Russian intelligence is working very effectively. One gets the impression that the Russians know in advance the subsequent actions of the enemy. Meanwhile, Russian Marines showed evidence of the participation of the US military in the attack on the Kursk region. It is reported that on October 12, 2024, in the Koronevsky district of the Kursk region, Russian Marines from the 155th Brigade of the Pacific Fleet managed to ambush and destroy a military column of the Ukrainian Army. It is noteworthy that among the destroyed equipment there was also an American infantry carrier vehicle Stryker, which contained the bodies of 8 US Army Rangers and valuable military documentation. Later, the Russian Marines showed the names of these American servicemen. It is reported that as of October 15, 2024, it was possible to identify one victim. It turned out to be American serviceman Brandon Sanchez, who joined the US Army 11 years ago, in 2013. Thus, the Russian Marines once again proved that not only foreign mercenaries from Latin America are fighting on the side of the Ukrainian army, but also active duty soldiers and officers of armies of NATO countries. Earlier, the commander of Spetsnaz Akhmat, General Apty Alodinov, officially announced that the Russian army regularly destroys thousands of foreign citizens in the Kursk region. According to him, many Polish, British, Canadian, French, German, and US citizens who are on the territory of Ukraine are active duty soldiers and officers of armies of NATO countries.